Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The main character of a TV series doesn't always need to be the most interesting character. Oftentimes, they're not. And in the Ahsoka series, that seems to be the case. Sure, Ahsoka's transformation from Ahsoka the Great to Ahsoka the White is dramatic character development, but it's also more like a return to her original form than her achieving a new level of power or understanding. And that's how it's all designed to be. That's because Ahsoka is really like the audience surrogate in this series. We're supposed to see things through her eyes. Like the audience, Ahsoka's older now, and like the audience, she knows the world in which she lives in more intimately than ever. Her frustrations over her apprentice Sabine Wren's lack of progress is our frustration.
I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
We've seen so many other Force users go through this exact same process.
With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?
And Ahsoka's annoyance over Professor Huyang's adherence to strict Jedi protocol also reflects our annoyance.
I'm not certain Lady Wren is ready for that technique.
Thank you, Huyang.
Yes, thank you, Huyang.
We know how fanatic the Jedi Order was about their protocols and how they followed those protocols all the way towards their own doom.
No, he will not be trained.
No.
He is too old.
And so when we see Ahsoka try to stop Baylan Skoll from bringing Thrawn back, we assume that she is the good guy here and what she's doing is right.
And you find starting another war necessary.
But here's the thing, Baylan Skoll is tricky. He's not your dad's Star Wars villain. He's not slinging lightning into people's faces and throwing Force-sensitive babies out the window. He doesn't have those telltale yellow Sith eyes. Baylan Skoll is a man of reason, and his most brutal moments are preceded by attempts to de-escalate the situation.
You're making a mistake.
He did warn him.
It didn't need to come to this.
I think a lot of audiences have sympathy for Baylan Skoll. I definitely do. And we talked about this in an earlier video we did about him. And basically what we talk about is how much we like Baylan Skoll because he's truly a well-created character and he's designed this way. I mean, he doesn't want to kill Ahsoka. He harbors no hatred for the Jedi.
To kill her will be a shame. There are so few Jedi left.
And he's a real man. He's masculine enough to be able to talk about his feelings and real emotions. He's not controlled by other people's perception of him. He's completely comfortable in his own shoes. He actually has a healthy relationship with his feelings, unlike 99% of other Force users who are either trying to run away from their emotions or loves feeding on other people's emotions like some kind of emotional vampire. Baylan Skoll is not your usual villain. He spends many moments in the show staring off into the distance, thoughtfully contemplating the future. His brain has not been rotted away by dark side energy. He doesn't have stupid dreams like building gigantic super lasers or running empires.
That sort of power is fleeting.
No, his goals seem quite pure in intention.
The only reason I'm here is to secure the future.
For you?
Something far greater.
Ambitious.
Before we continue talking about Baylan Skoll's intentions, we have a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, OwnerSaber.com. They have an amazing deal for you guys that ends October 8th. If you purchase one of their replica sabers, you can get a Padawan saber for free. Owner Saber's replica category features some truly unique and beautiful looking blades. But the hottest thing to get right now is obviously the Samurai, modeled after the pair of blades that Ahsoka Tano uses in the series. Now, I personally don't really like dual wielding because I tend to break things when I dual wield, so this is my personal favorite replica. Yeah, baby, that's the Darksaber right there. That's beautiful. It's just the symbol of leadership for the Mandalorian people, no big deal. And honestly, you can really feel the weight of the Mandalorian's people suffering in this hilt. It's so well designed and the craftsmanship is really awesome. It's better than, what you get at those Disney parks for sure. To take advantage of this deal, simply add both the replica saber and Padawan saber of your choice in the cart, and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. Take a look at the description down below for more information, and don't forget to use our promo code EWOK. That's all caps for an additional $15 off. Thank you for your patience. So, what does Baylan Skoll actually want? Surely someone as honorable and kind as him can't want something evil. I mean, he did keep his word to Sabine Wren when he said that if she gives him the map that he would allow her to see Ezra. Ends up happening, right? Baylan Skoll also seems like a kind master to Shin Hati. He's not overly harsh. He seeks to mentor her and protect her in his own way. So is it possible for a man who appears strong, principled, and honest to actually be a bad person? Well, I guess that's the whole point of this character. He's an individual we've all seen before. He's an individual we're familiar with. We're supposed to label him in our minds based on our previous experiences, because that's what humans do. We label people, we generalize, we stereotype. You know, all throughout human history, in every civilization that's ever been created by man, there's always been racism, prejudice, and stereotyping. It's just a part of our human nature. And honestly, anyone who thinks that they can completely eliminate that part of our human nature, well, they're just not being honest about the prejudice in their own hearts, because we all have it. And Filoni understands this undeniable aspect of human behavior, and he uses it against us, the audience. I mean, this is the beauty of this character he's created. Everything about Baylan Skoll seems right. If anything, Ahsoka Tano seems to be the one who is off balance and irrational here. I mean, Baylan Skoll is a reasonable individual. He makes sense as a character. He's seen so much trauma in his life. He escaped Order 66. He saw the Jedi fail to contain the Sith. As a matter of fact, they even helped Darth Sidious orchestrate their own downfall. And Baylan Skoll clearly is not a Sith. He hates them. He lets Ahsoka know his opinion on Anakin/Darth Vader, who he viewed as a force of destruction and chaos. What he desires has nothing to do with the Jedi or the Sith, and who can blame him after all he's seen?
It's all inevitable. Fall of the Jedi, rise of the Empire. It repeats again and again and again.
We've all seen how incompetent the New Republic is, how it's incapable of governing the galaxy, how many of its institutions are just direct copy and paste from Imperial times, which were also ripped directly from the Old Republic. Filoni purposely makes this decision to make the New Republic difficult, and he makes Baylan Skoll purposely really likable. Baylan Skoll is really supposed to challenge us on our perception of what is right and what is wrong. Even if he walks a path of righteousness, does that excuse the death and destruction that he's clearly capable of? Are evil actions and murder justified if it's in service of the greater good? That's a really tough question. But what exactly does Baylan Skoll even want here? Well, in previous videos, we talked a little bit about the naming convention of Morgan Elsbeth's mercenaries. So Ser Merrick was one of King Arthur's knights, and he was turned into a werewolf by the witch Morgan Le Fay. And the Merrick we see here in the show used to probably be a Jedi before he was turned into an Inquisitor, and then whatever green powder he was turned into afterwards by Morgan Elsbeth. And Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati are named after two giants, two wolves in Norse mythology that chased the sun and the moon. They would chase these celestial bodies for many centuries, and it was said that once they devoured the sun and the moon, that Ragnarok would occur. And Ragnarok was feared by everyone who believed in Norse mythology. In ancient times, whenever a solar eclipse or lunar eclipse happened, villagers would run out with their pots and pans and start making as much noise as possible in order to scare the gigantic wolves they thought were eating the moon and the sun. The hope was that they would drop it and Ragnarok would not occur. And that's because Ragnarok was the end of days. The world would burn and then be submerged beneath the ocean. Most Norse gods like Odin, Hemsworth, Heimel, Mikkelsen would perish in the fighting, and most humans would perish as well.
What happens when we find Thrawn?
For some, war.
But for some, Ragnarok had a different purpose.
For others, a new beginning.
You see, there's another side to the Ragnarok story that people oftentimes forget, and that's after the floods recede, land will appear once again, and two human survivors will procreate and recreate the human civilization. I mean, there'll be a lot of genetic diseases because like two people is not enough, but the idea is there is a new beginning.
What I seek is the beginning, so I may finally bring this cycle to an end.
This was Skoll and Hati's purpose in Norse mythology, to end the cycle and to start a new beginning. It's a common theme we see in a lot of mythology and religions. It's human nature to eventually grow tired of whatever task or thing they're trying to build and just, start anew. It's like when you get to the end game of civilization and you realize that the empire you've built is not only unwieldy to handle, but also the load times between each turn are just excruciatingly long. And so you yearn for the days when each turn was exciting, new, and full of learning and exploration. Throughout human history, men from Karl Marx to Steve Bannon have given up on fixing the problems in the current society and dream of tearing everything down, burning everything down, creating Ragnarok. The problem with these individuals is they're really only good at destruction, and they rarely have the ability to actually recreate society. Very few do. I mean, societies are created over generations, and even though they are flawed, it takes time. And oftentimes when people rush and they hurry, they end up creating civilizations that are flawed, that repeat the very same mistakes that the old ones had. It is human nature, after all. And we can be quite predictable if you take the longer view of human history. And Baylan Skoll, having seen all that he has now, belongs in this camp of destroyers.
It is an unfortunate evil, but speaks to a greater truth. One must destroy in order to create.
Baylan Skoll has an unfortunate mix of personality factors. He has a very strong ego so strong that he actually believes that he can change the world, but at the same time, the experiences he's suffered through all his life has made him give up on the more incremental change that would actually help the galaxy. Rather than, I don't know, becoming a ranger in the Outer Rim like Carson Teva, or even a Ronin like Ahsoka Tano and wandering around helping one soul at a time, Baylan Skoll believes in himself so much that he thinks that he can bring peace and stability to the entire galaxy through one swift blow. We just don't know exactly how he'll do that, although we do just hear constant howling in the winds, which is terrifying.
And that beginning is here.
If the old stories are true,
you know, if Disney were really smart, they would create a Professor Hu Yang like action figure robot, and if he pushed a button, he would just tell various tales that he tells to the Padawan, including that tale of the path to Peridea. Then we can finally figure out what the hell Baylan Skoll is waiting for on this planet. I mean, the episode does come out in like a few hours. I'm just being impatient, but yeah, I hope we learn what exactly that story is and what drove Baylan Skoll to come here. Anyway, Baylan Skoll's story will be an important lesson for all of us, and I love it when Star Wars does this. It teaches us meaningful things. You know, just because someone looks like us, just because someone has some personality characteristics that we like, just because a person seems honorable and says all the right things and acts the right way, doesn't mean that they're actually good and righteous. Even if Baylan Skoll's intentions are pure, in his own way he seems to actually want to end suffering for everyone, it doesn't mean that he's on the right path. It's the unfortunate truth of the world we live in today. We are more connected than ever. And in a lot of ways, it's wonderful. I can meet people from all over the world. I mean, I see all the comments from you guys, and I can tell a lot of you people are genuinely nice people I would like to meet and have conversations with. But at the same time, malicious people can also have more access than ever before. They can reach vulnerable people who aren't used to using social media or the information space. And so it's important for us not to be lulled into a sense of comfort by a soft-spoken and strong, charismatic individual like Baylan Skoll. You know, I see some comments on this channel where people say, oh, Alan, you seem like a reasonable and nice person, but here's the thing, man. It's very easy to sound reasonable and kind. It's acting. It's charisma to a certain extent, but you can create these kind of characters. But what a person says, the substance behind their words still matter. I mean, what would you guys do if one day I just told everyone to go home, grab a spear gun, drive to the nearest body of water that you live by, and start the dolphin counter-offensive? I mean, you wouldn't do it. It's completely unhinged. We all know that an unprepared offensive against the dolphins will only make them stronger. And so we have to be wary of guys like Baylan Skoll. He's probably a great master to Shin Hati, and he seems to genuinely care for her, but he is unhinged. He wants to most likely unleash some terrible evil into the galaxy to actually save it. And that reveals a cowardliness in his personality that we've only seen glimpses of.
best get underway soon.
Is that a note of fear in your voice?
Yes, Baylan Skoll is comfortable with his fear He is not afraid of hiding it in front of other people, but he also lets his fear drive his actions. He's turned away from trying to make the galaxy a better place one person at a time because he fears the difficulty and futility of it. What's worse, he's passed on this pessimism to the younger generation, to Shinhati. He lacks the energy to tackle the real challenges in the galaxy. He's a tired, older man. And who can blame him after all he's seen? But what he's doing here is unfair. It's like the equivalent of flipping over a Scrabble table simply because you don't have enough letters to make a word, but you're robbing other people who are playing the game who might have the ability to make a word for themselves. You never give them a chance. And these other players are future generation of kids who have the energy to fight for the future, who want to grow up and not get enslaved by Abeloth. Nah, just kidding. It's no wonder Baylan Skoll has no respect for the New Republic. Yes, it's a silly-looking organization, but it's reflective of people who just escaped 20 years of Imperial rule and an extremely brutal war. Democracies like this are always worth preserving. They can be the strongest form of government, and yes, they're difficult to maintain. It's hard to keep it going. You need to be courageous. Your voting population needs to be completely willing to let go of power and share it with other people. Democracies require people to be courageous enough to actually listen to people they disagree with. It requires the courage to understand that diverse points of views will shore up your own weaknesses and blind spots. You know, I don't like a lot of the things that the New Republic does. I don't like how they treat veterans like Harrison Duel. I don't like the political games. I don't like the legislators who only seem to care about gaining more power. But the Republic itself, the system, it's such a beautiful thing. To have something so open, governing an entire galaxy is remarkable. At its core, a republic represents a desire for humans to discard their most animalistic behaviors, their selfishness, their fear and suspicion. It's an agreement to cooperate, and it's agreement that humans can evolve and just be better. You know, what a lot of people get wrong is that republics are never meant to be perfect. They're always a work in progress. The idea is at the end of the day, no matter what, we shake hands and we agree to continue being stewards of this wonderful system and protect it for future generations. And so yes, unfortunately individuals like Baylan Skoll, as likable as he is, might be incompatible with this system. Because like so many other individuals who are governed by fear of their fellow man, fear of their fellow citizens, Baylan Skoll has decided to rob other people of their right of self-governance. And it's important not to hate individuals like Baylan Skoll, but instead see him as a cautionary tale of what happens when chaos and constant war poisons the mind of otherwise good and noble people. This is why it's important to care about what's going on in the wider world, outside of your own town, outside of your own country. Every disaster that we as a human species can prevent, every war that can be stopped, also limits the amount of people who lose hope and dream of Ragnarok. Because that is a f***ing stupid idea. You know, the best revolutions are incremental. They don't leave massive amounts of people behind or dead lying in a ditch executed. The best revolutions are forward thinking. They rely on bringing the best out of humanity instead of preying on humanity's worst tendencies. They're championed not by the extreme fringes of society, but the masses themselves. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.